I'd like to welcome everyone to this discussion of the relevance of Western civilization. This discussion focuses on the concept, real or imaginary, of Western civilization and why that concept is relevant to today and to those who live within it. When initiating the process of answering that question, I have to ask myself, when was the last time I seriously thought about Western civilization, or any other civilization for that matter? I could not answer that question because those times, if existent, were so few. Naturally, I heard the term Western civilization or a close variant thereof, but think about it. Not too often, and certainly not in depth to any extent. But upon further reflection and some initial reading, it is clear that no matter what the actual definition is of the concept or reality of Western civilization, there is considerable debate on exactly what the term includes, does not include, when it began, if it began, what it means, and a review of references reveals definitions ranging from Daniel Hannan proclaiming in no uncertain terms that Western civilization is in fact Anglophile civilization, which does such descriptive material as in his role as a member of the European Union Parliament. The reality is different, and I quote, "The three precepts that define Western civilization, the rule of law, democratic government, and individual liberty, are not equally valued across Europe. When they act collectively, the member states of the EU are quite ready to subordinate all three to political imperatives." Hannah's attempt to explain that only the English tradition of common law and adhering to that tradition actually fits his relatively constrained definition of Western civilization. As many others, groups, societies, political entities, are willing to subordinate that vital to Western civilization by Hannan's definition concept in face of expediency, whether that be political, economic, or social. In contrast to Hannan, and appearing in the Guardian News and Media website, historian author Kwame Appiah, in an article entitled "There is no such a thing as Western civilization," attempts to trace the development of his so-called Western civilization back to Greece, using an analogy of a golden nugget representing knowledge and culture. In part, he states, quote, "Partitioned between the Flemish and Florentine courts and the Venetian Republic in the Renaissance, its fragments, the golden nugget, passed through cities such as Avignon, Paris, Amsterdam, Weimar, Edinburgh, London, and were finally reunited, pieced together like broken shards of a Grecian urn in the academies of Europe and ultimately the United States. Thus including virtually all of Europe in this conglomerate of countries, societies, and cultures comprising Western civilization, omitting the vast majority, actually essentially all, of the countries in Africa and Asia. And clearly also those countries located in what we would refer to as Eastern Europe. Thus, we have seen so far, and actually just scratched the surface, various attempts to rationally, and in some cases irrationally, define the timing, boundaries, content, characteristics, and other descriptive models of what is and what comprises Western civilization. All the while virtually proving that there's no consensus of exactly what it is we are attempting to define, other than possibly our own definition or personal understanding of what the concept means. And that, in a large part, is why it is relevant. That reflection is reason enough to attempt to ask or re-ask the same question: what is Western civilization, and why is it important to study it and attempt to understand what it is? One important concept and possible answer to that question is also very reflective, and it was also introduced by author Appiah, and in There's No Such Thing as Western Civilization. He states what should potentially be an obvious fact, but is probably often overlooked. And I quote here, "Values are a birthright. You need to keep caring about them. Living in the West, however you define it, being Western, provides no guarantee that you will care about Western civilization. That comment alone should define our interest and interpretation of the legacy and relevance of Western civilization, no matter what the specific and precise definition may be in vogue at the time, and as to how that relevance affects all of us within that civilization. Thank you for your attention and listening to this presentation.